Samuel Carter had never seen mountains like these. The Tennessee peaks rose like guardians around the town of Miller's Hollow, their shadows stretching across winding roads and wooden cabins. It was the summer of 1906, and Samuel, only 22, had traveled days from Nashville with little more than a suitcase, a worn coat, and the hope of work. He had heard the stories, workers who went into the old Grayson Mill and never returned, but he dismissed them as mountain superstition. His mother was sick back home, his younger sister struggling to keep the farm afloat, and the money he earned here could save them. As he walked past the dusty main street, he felt the weight of unseen eyes watching him. The mill loomed at the edge of town, its blackened wood creaking in the wind, steam rising faintly from its chimney. Samuel took a deep breath. "I can do this," he whispered to himself, unaware that the mill's history was about to test him in ways he could never imagine. Samuel entered the mill just as the sun dipped below the peaks. Inside, the scent of sawdust and oil filled the air. He was introduced to the crew. Thomas, a burly foreman with hands like iron and a heart of gold. Margaret, the quiet bookkeeper whose eyes missed nothing. And Eli, a young apprentice with a pale face and wide, curious eyes. "Be careful around here," Thomas grunted. "The mill, it's not like other places." Eli laughed nervously, spinning a wrench in his hand. "He'll see soon enough." Sometimes the machines hum when no one's working. Sometimes you feel like someone's standing right behind you, but when you turn, nothing. Samuel forced a smile, nodding. They spent the evening sharing stories by the fire, their laughter echoing strangely in the empty mill. Yet Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A cold breeze drifted from nowhere, and the shadows seemed to move just a little too deliberately. Samuel's cabin was small, with only a cot and a lantern that flickered in the wind. That night, he tried to sleep, but a strange sound woke him. The grinding of gears, slow and deliberate, echoing through the valley. Heart racing, he grabbed a lantern and ran to the mill. Inside, Eli stood frozen, staring at the machines. I didn't touch them," he whispered. "They're alive," Samuel muttered, realizing he could feel vibrations through the wooden floorboards, as if the mill itself were breathing. Neither spoke again, but as they left the mill together, Samuel's mind raced. Was it machinery or something else entirely? He shivered as the wind carried faint whispers, and a shadow flickered near the rafters. Days passed, and Samuel began to notice small disappearances. Tools moved on their own, footprints vanished into solid walls, and sometimes he swore he saw a figure watching from the tree line. One evening, Eli didn't return from the storage loft. They searched the mill and surrounding forest, calling his name. Thomas scowled, frustration etched into his face. "This place, it doesn't like strangers." "Be careful, boy. Be very careful." Samuel's determination hardened. He would not leave anyone behind, not when the fear in the air was so palpable. But as the sun set, he felt the same unease he had on his first night. Only now it was heavier, more pressing. That night, Samuel couldn't sleep. From somewhere in the mill came soft murmurs, unintelligible yet filled with sorrow and longing. The walls seemed to breathe, the shadows shifting like dark fingers reaching for him. Compelled, Samuel followed the whispers to the grain silos, where a hidden door was partially obscured by rotting wood. The door creaked as he opened it, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Samuel hesitated. Something deep inside him urged caution, but his curiosity and the hope of finding Eli overrode his fear. Lantern in hand, he stepped down into the unknown, the whispers growing louder, almost pleading. The staircase ended in a small underground room. The air was cold and damp, carrying the faint scent of candle wax long extinguished. Carvings adorned the walls, names, dates, cryptic symbols, each etched with care and anguish. Samuel's breath caught when he recognized some of the names. They belonged to the missing workers, including Eli. A sense of both horror and empathy flooded him. The room pulsed with energy, shadows twisting in corners, almost as if alive. Samuel understood that the mill was not just wood and metal. It had a consciousness, feeding on sorrow and regret, capturing those who had lost their way or ignored their conscience. Samuel hurried back the next morning to confide in Margaret. Her face drained of color as he spoke. "You've seen it," she said, her voice trembling. "It's real. And it's dangerous. Some things, some places, are meant to be left alone. The mill takes, but it also watches. It chooses carefully who it traps. You must understand. The longer you linger, the closer it comes for you." Samuel listened, conflicted. Fear gnawed at him, but he couldn't leave the missing workers behind. Determination set in. "I can't run," he said quietly. "I have to face it, whatever it is." That night, Samuel returned alone, descending to the hidden room. The walls glowed faintly with symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Shadows writhed and shifted, forming vague human shapes. Then Eli appeared, pale and hollow-eyed. "The mill, it feeds on regrets," Eli whispered. "It won't let go until it has what it desires: truth, remorse, honesty. Speak your regrets, or you'll never leave." Samuel fell to his knees, feeling the weight of years he had buried, leaving his sick mother behind, the harsh words spoken to his sister, the pride that blinded him to others' suffering. As he spoke, the mill seemed to listen, the shadows recoiling slightly from the raw honesty. Samuel spent hours confronting his regrets, each confession a small release. The mill's energy pressed on him, but he felt a strange clarity as he admitted his faults and fears. For the first time, he saw the pattern. Workers weren't vanishing randomly. They were trapped by unspoken guilt and unresolved sorrow. Eli guided him, whispering encouragement. "It's not punishment, it's reflection. Only those willing to face themselves can survive." Remember that. Samuel nodded, understanding that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but facing what haunted the heart. The next day, Samuel found Thomas in the loft, inspecting the old machinery. With a heavy sigh, Thomas began to speak. "The Graysons built this mill with good intentions, prosperity, work, community. But a fire, a terrible fire, changed everything. Workers died, and some never found peace. Their spirits lingered, caught in a cycle, feeding this place. I've been surviving by respecting the mill, but you might actually end this." Samuel listened intently, realizing the mill's curse was more than superstition. It was a reflection of human neglect and unresolved grief. And in that moment, he resolved to face the mill's challenge, not for himself alone, but for everyone lost to its shadow. The night air was thick with tension as Samuel returned to the mill, lantern swinging in his hand. The shadows seemed heavier, darker, almost sentient. He could hear faint whispers echoing through the wooden beams, pleas, cries, and sorrowful murmurs from the lost workers. Every step forward felt like walking into a living nightmare, but Samuel refused to retreat. He called out the names of the missing, one by one, his voice trembling but unwavering. Eli, Thomas, Mary, David. Each name seemed to ripple through the air, stirring unseen forces. Shadows shifted violently, cold hands brushing his skin, but Samuel held his ground. Fear clawed at him, but he reminded himself. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was standing firm despite it. While searching the mill's upper loft, Samuel stumbled upon a hidden ledger, brittle with age. As he carefully turned the pages, he realized the truth. The disappearances weren't random. The mill trapped those who carried deep regrets, guilt, or unresolved sorrow. Workers who ignored family, betrayed trust, or abandoned their conscience became vulnerable. Samuel's heart sank. The mill was not merely haunted, it was a mirror, reflecting human flaws and feeding on pain. The moral was clear. Only by facing and acknowledging one's deepest regrets could someone survive the mill's grasp. Samuel understood the weight of responsibility now, not just for himself, but for everyone trapped by the mill's curse. Samuel returned to the hidden room, determined to free the lost workers. One by one, he spoke aloud the regrets of those who had vanished, imagining their hopes, their unfinished dreams, their loved ones left behind. He recited their names, their mistakes, and their longings, pouring empathy into each confession. The shadows quivered, twisting in strange, sorrowful patterns. Samuel felt the energy shift. The mill seemed to respond to sincerity, its hunger abating as his words filled the void with compassion. It was exhausting, emotionally and physically. But Samuel pressed on, knowing that each act of recognition and empathy brought the lost closer to peace. As dawn broke over the Tennessee mountains, a warm light filtered through the mill's windows. Samuel felt a shift in the air, a soft, almost musical chime, like bells ringing far away. Then from the swirling shadows, Eli emerged, pale but smiling. "Thank you," he whispered before stepping into the sunlight. One by one, the other missing workers appeared, transformed, faces relaxed, eyes brighter, bodies no longer burdened by fear or guilt. The mill, once a place of dread, now seemed quieter, lighter, almost peaceful. Samuel sank to the floor, tears streaming down his face, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude. Margaret found Samuel the next morning, still seated in the hidden room. She embraced him tightly, tears running freely. "You've done what no one else dared," she said. "You freed them, and perhaps freed yourself as well." Samuel realized she was right. The true victory wasn't defeating the mill. It was acknowledging sorrow, facing personal flaws, and offering empathy to the lost. The lesson was profound. Courage, compassion, and honesty could heal even the darkest wounds. Word of Samuel's deeds spread through Miller's Hollow. Locals who once feared the mill approached with reverence, leaving flowers and small tokens in memory of those who had vanished. The mill, once a place of terror, became a site of reflection and respect. Samuel watched as families lingered, telling stories to children about courage, responsibility, and empathy. The town learned that even a haunted place could teach hope, and that acknowledging human flaws and regrets could bring profound peace. The mill had transformed, and so had the people who once feared it. Samuel considered leaving the mountains, returning to Nashville to care for his family, but he felt a stronger pull to remain. He had survived the mill's trial and understood its lessons. He could guide others, prevent tragedy, and honor the memories of those who had suffered. He decided to stay, opening the mill to those in need of reflection and reconciliation. Each visitor learned, in their own way, the mill's lessons: confront fears, acknowledge regrets, and seek forgiveness. Samuel's life became one of quiet service, helping others find peace. Years later, a young man appeared at the mill, shaking and remorseful, carrying burdens that weighed him down. Samuel recognized the same fear he had felt when he first arrived. "We all carry burdens," Samuel said gently, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "This place, it will help you face them. You may not understand yet, but confronting your fear and regrets can set you free." The young man hesitated, then nodded. The cycle of healing continued. The mill's darkness transformed into a place of learning and growth. Samuel's courage had created a legacy of hope. While cleaning a dusty corner, Samuel found a hidden journal written by the Grayson family. Its pages revealed that the mill had originally been a place of creation, joy, and community. The fire and subsequent deaths had twisted its purpose, creating the curse. He realized the mill had never sought to punish, it had sought to teach. It tested those who entered, forcing them to confront their own flaws and fears. Samuel understood the truth. The mill reflected humanity, showing that empathy, courage, and honesty were the keys to breaking cycles of pain. Decades later, Samuel, now old and gray, stood before the mill. Children played nearby, families visited, and the structure once feared now symbolized reflection and hope. He smiled, knowing the mill's whispers were no longer cries of fear, but murmurs of gratitude. Courage, empathy, and responsibility had transformed even the darkest place. Samuel's life had become a testament to the power of facing one's own flaws, acknowledging sorrow, and offering compassion. The mill stood as a silent guardian, a reminder that even the most haunted places could shine with light when hearts were brave enough to confront fear and sorrow.